Hello, everybody. There's a couple of people I don't know. My name's Vadanya, if I don't know you already. So you might have noticed I wasn't here last night, and that's because I'm sort of paying a bit of a flying visit, because I've been having this sort of mystery bug that lays me low periodically if ever I get a bit tired. And running these, or helping to run these retreats can be quite tiring, so I'm sort of taking it very easy. But I promised some time ago I'd do this talk, so I'm sort of here on a flying visit. So the theme of this retreat is the Karaniya Metta Sutta. At least I hope it is. You changed it. So Karaniya Metta Sutta, you probably heard it read out last night. So sutta means discourse. It's related to our word sutra, thread. It's a discourse. And so something called a sutta means it's from the Pali Canon. It's a teaching from the historical Buddha, from what's called the Pali Canon, written down in the Pali language, which is the language in which the closest we get to the Buddha's actual teachings. And so it's sutta, and it's the Karaniya Metta Sutta. You know metta, and Karaniya means something like this is what you should do. So it's this is what you should do Metta Sutta. This is what you should do Metta teaching, and it's a short text. I mean, it's really short. It's just one side on my version I've got here, but it's a very important text. According to scholars, or some scholars anyway, it's from the earliest strata of the Pali Canon. So it's from the parts that were written down earliest, that are likely to be the closest to what the Buddha actually said, before they got sort of messed around by later generations of monks who sometimes wrote down what they thought the Buddha should have said rather than what he did. In the Theravadan tradition of Southeast Asia, which is of course the one that bases itself very firmly on the Pali Canon, this text is seen as having a sort of magical power. It's said to, chanting it is said to protect against evil and harmful influences. I'll say a bit more about that later, but I think the fact that it's given that sort of power, it's got that aura, says something about its importance through history, the importance of this sutta through history. So I've said it's a short text, and I'm going to read it. Basically, I'm going to read it now. So it's the Karaniya Metta Sutta. If you know what is truly good for you and want to reach a state of perfect peace, then this is how you need to live. Start by becoming a capable person who is honest and straightforward, gently spoken, flexible, and not conceited. Then become contented and happy with few worries and a simple life. Keep your sense experience calm and controlled. Have respect for others. Avoid greed and craving. Don't be influenced by the ways of the world, and don't do anything unworthy that wiser people would criticize. Then you should meditate like this, thinking, may all beings be happy and secure. May all beings be happy in their heart of hearts. May all living things be well, the weak and the strong, the small and the large, those near and those far away, those you can see and those you can't, whether living now or yet to be born. May all beings be happy in their heart of hearts. May no one deceive or look down on another. May no one be angry with another. May no one react to another. May no one want another to suffer. Just as a mother cherishes her child, her only child, develop an unlimited heart of friendliness for all beings. Develop an unlimited heart of friendliness for the whole universe, sending love and goodwill in all directions, above, below, and all around, beyond all narrowness, beyond all rivalry, beyond all hatred. Whether you are at home or travelling, whether you are standing, sitting, or in bed, In all your hours rest in this state of mind, which is like living in heaven right here and now. In this way you will leave all wrong views far behind. You will experience the spiritual insight that is beyond words and concepts. And going completely beyond craving, you will be liberated from the wheel of samsara forever. So that's the Karaniya Metta Sutta. And it starts with the words, if you know what is truly good for you. We all think we know what's truly good for us. We're usually on completely the wrong track. We usually think that what's completely good for us is looking out for number one, getting our own way, getting lots of distractions and entertainments and passing pleasures. Lots of telly maybe, DVDs, that's what's truly good for us. That's what will make us happy. But if we're honest, I think we've got to admit that this hasn't worked yet. We've probably been doing that with all our might, seeking happiness that way with all our might for quite a long time now. And I would put it to you that it hasn't completely worked, or we wouldn't be here looking for something else. And if it hasn't worked yet, after all those decades of doing it, it probably isn't going to. It's probably never going to work. So the sutta is telling us this is what will truly be good for us. So as we say on our introductory classes, Buddhism is about becoming happier, but it takes a completely radical approach to that, which is completely different from the look after number one approach, get what you want approach, which our society tells us. Human beings, we habitually look for happiness in the wrong place. That's what the Dharma tells us, and the Dharma is telling us this is the right place to look. This is where you should really look if you want happiness. This is what is truly good for you. Then the sutta goes on, if you know what is truly good for you and want to reach a state of perfect peace. So a state of perfect peace, of course, is nirvana. If you want to reach nirvana. Perfect peace, but also described as blissful, deathless, just better than we can imagine. Just better than we can imagine. Not only peace, but a vibrant state, nirvana, enlightenment, liberation. And the text says, if you want to reach that state, then this is what you need to do. Karaniya. This is what you need to do if you want to reach that state. If you want to reach a state of perfect peace, freedom, liberation, bliss, this is what you need to do. So, one page, instructions, the way to enlightenment. This is a document we need to look at carefully. If we believe what's on the tin, we need to look at this document very carefully. We need to really consider it with what it has to say with a lot of respect. Pali suttas can be a bit, I think probably because they were passed down orally, they can be a bit like, oh yeah, they're there and they're gone. They can be quite brief and they make quite big points quite briefly. And very often I think we have to unpack them. We have to really look at them and unpack those words. We really look at the meaning behind those words. We can just skim over it. So I think we've got to look at this sutta with a lot of respect and really unpack it a bit. So that's what it says on the tin. This is the instruction manual for reaching nirvana. And then it goes on, start by becoming a capable person. Well, that seems a really odd thing to say. Does that mean we have to go and do a course in plumbing and brush up on our carpentry, or go to a management school and learn how to manage? I mean, is that what it means? Is that what being a capable person means? Because maybe it's going to take us a very long while to get beyond the first line, if that's what it means. Well, actually, I don't think that is what it means. I think what it means is become the sort of person who is capable of carrying through what we decide to do. Become the sort of person who can carry through with their intentions. So that we can achieve what we set out to do. Okay, when we set out to do something, sometimes we're stopped by outer circumstances, but very often we're stopped because actually we undermine ourselves. Part of us might want to get fit, but part of us might want to eat loads of crisps and watch loads of telly. So in the morning we decide to go for a run that evening, and then in the evening it doesn't seem like such a good idea anymore. So we don't carry through with our intentions. We aren't capable of carrying through with our intentions because we aren't what psychologists, I think, have called integrated. We aren't one whole person. There's lots of different strands of our being, sub-personalities, that almost like want different things. And so when one part is in charge, we think, hey, I'm going to get fit. But then when the other part is in charge, we think, well, I think I'll just open that packet of crisps and sit on the sofa. So we're not one harmonious whole. We're made up of these lots of different sub-personalities, and they're not all pulling in the same direction. And when we're like that, we're very often not capable of reaching our intentions, because we can't carry them out because we're divided in ourselves. If we're like that, we can't reach worldly goals like getting fit or becoming really good at some skill or art, or even making loads of money. We can't carry through with those intentions because part of us wants to do something different. And we can't carry through with spiritual ones either, which also require us to have some sort of continuity of purpose. We might decide to meditate every day, and then when it comes to it, I'll do something different actually. So start by becoming a capable person, someone who's got their different sub-personalities, if you like, to come together into one harmonious whole, so that we don't decide to do one thing and then actually do another. We're capable of reaching our goals. So if you've been coming to our Sangha nights in Sheffield since last autumn, you'll remember that we were exploring Sangharashtra's system of meditation, and that system of spiritual development, in fact, and that system starts with integration. It starts with integration, then positive emotion, then spiritual death, then spiritual rebirth, and receptivity being a sort of aspect that comes at the end but also runs through all of them. So integration, it starts with integration. If we want to succeed on the path, we have to first of all become integrated, get our energies pulling in the same direction. We need to build a strong whole self, if you like, and it's on the basis of that strong whole positive self that we then can go on to transcend our limited selfhood and become something bigger. But we need to do that first. The Karaniya Metta Sutta is saying exactly the same thing, I think. Start by becoming a capable person. And then it says, start by becoming a capable person who is honest and upright. Honest and upright. Have integrity. If we want to have integration, we have to have integrity. We have to be somebody who sticks to our values. We have to tell the truth to others and to ourselves. Dishonesty disintegrates us. So start by becoming a capable person who is honest and upright. Honesty and uprightness is really important. It's the foundation of the path. And of course, honesty is also one of the precepts. And then the sutta goes on to look at a number of different sort of ethical precepts. It says, live a simple life. Stillness, simplicity and contentment. It says, avoid craving. It says, avoid greed. It's giving us the sort of basic ethical background. So most of the sutta is about meditation, but it kicks off with laying the foundations. Through establish our integrity, establish our integration, be true to our principles, keep the precepts, and then we can move on. You'll know that the Buddhist path is meditation, yes, but it's ethics, meditation and wisdom. So the first couple of verses are about establishing the foundation. I'll just say a couple of things about what it says in there. One of the things it says is don't be influenced by the ways of the world, which I think is quite interesting. I think that means become an individual. Become an individual. Don't just go with the flow. Don't just go with the fashionable ideas that happen to be current at the time. Become an individual. Don't be influenced by the ways of the world. That's part of integration, being an autonomous person who can make up their own mind and decide what they're doing. It also says be flexible and not conceited, which, relating it to the sort of system of development, be receptive. Be receptive. If we're inflexible and think we know it all, well, we're not open. We're not open, so we're not going to get very far. And then this rather odd one. Think about what wiser people would say. What does it say? Don't do anything unworthy that wiser people would criticise. Well, I suppose there's something in there about just, well, that not being conceited and being flexible, recognising that there might be wiser people than ourselves, having some spiritual role models, even using spiritual role models as a guide to how we might be, people we really admire. When we think about what they would do, gives us quite a guide sometimes to what we might do. So, the first bit is about the foundation, integration and ethics. And it says, well, when we've at least gone some way towards, becoming an integrated ethical person, then meditate like this. And it moves on to the main thing. Then meditate like this. Then you should meditate like this, thinking, may all beings be happy and secure. May all beings be happy in their heart of hearts. May all living things be well, the weak and the strong, the small and the large, those near and those far away, those you can see and those you can't, whether living now or yet to be born. May all beings be happy in their heart of hearts. And it carries on from there. So I think tomorrow there's going to be a number of talks about how people get into the metabarming. Is that the case? So I'm not going to say an enormous amount about the nitty-gritty of the metabarming practice, but I'll pick out a few things from the sutta. So one of the things about the sutta is it stresses the non-exclusivity of the metta. So the weak and the strong, the small and the large, those near and those far away, those you can see and those you can't, whether living now or yet to be born, completely non-exclusive, completely non-exclusive. So it expresses that non-exclusivity, but also the strength of feeling, the strength of intention that we usually get from very exclusive relationships, just as a mother cherishes her child, her only child. So that strength that we might, that a mother might have, the strength of positive wish that a mother might have for her only child. So combining non-exclusivity, inclusivity with that strength that comes generally to us from very close relationship. We're sort of seeking to develop that sense of close relationship, but much more widely for all beings. And the sutta, as it describes the metabarming, it doesn't use the stages. It doesn't use the stages that we usually use. They didn't actually come in. They were recommended, as far as I know, until about the 3rd century AD or something, by a commentator called Buddhaghosa. The Buddha just said, "Do it. Just feel love for all beings and spread it out in all directions, radiate it out in all directions, like a transmitter." So, filling the universe. There's another sutta about metta where it says, "Here a bhikkhu abides pervading 1/4 with a mind imbued with loving kindness. Likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth. So above, below, and all around, everywhere, and to all beings, as well as to himself, he abides pervading the all-encompassing world with a mind imbued with loving kindness, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility, without ill will. When the deliverance of mind by loving kindness is developed in this way, No limit remains here. None persists. Just as a vigorous trumpeter could make himself heard without difficulty in the four quarters, so too, when the deliverance of mind by loving kindness is developed in this way, no limit remains, none persists here. So that image of sending out metta in all directions, above, below, and all around, filling the universe, a bit like somebody blowing a trumpet really loudly and sending out the sound waves, is one actually I really quite like. And you might imagine yourself doing that in your practice, especially in the final stage. You imagine metta, you're a radio transmitter, beaming out metta and filling the universe with metta. So, the Sutta just says, just do it. Go on, just do it. Just do it. Radiate it out in all directions. And then it doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop with the formal practice of sitting. It tells us whether you're at home or travelling, whether you are standing, sitting, or in bed, in all your hours, rest in this state of mind, which is like living in heaven right here and now. So whether you're at home or travelling, standing, sitting, or in bed, in all your hours, be in this state all the time. Remember metta all the time. And if you can do that, that will be a bit like living in heaven. That would be real happiness. So take the practice off the cushion, is what it's saying. Take the practice off the cushion. The state of mind you uncover and nurture in the metta bhavana practice, remember it and revisit it as often as you can when you're not formally meditating. When you're on the bus, send metta send goodwill to all the beings on the bus. Think, may they all be happy. When you're in a queue, send metta to all the beings in the queue. And so on. Revisit the practice as often as you can. Do what Vajratara used to call the guerrilla metta bhavana. As often as you can. That's G-E-U. If you want to send metta to gorillas, that's very fine. But the guerrilla metta bhavana is like on the bus, in the queue, wherever. Some people find that quite easy, I think. Some people find that quite easy. For me, I had to do quite a lot of metta bhavana practice before it was easy for me to consciously remember and connect with metta off the cushion. I had to do quite a lot of practice, and before I could do it on the bus or in the queue. And I think that's probably true of quite a lot of us. We need to put in the hours of formal meditation, I think. Before it's easy to recall that state and connect with it off the cushion. Once we've done a bit of metta bhavana and can remember what it feels like, then it becomes a lot easier. So there's a scientific study quoted. I hate scientific studies that talk about brainwaves and meditation. But there is a scientific study quoted in that source of all knowledge, Wikipedia, where it talks about a research project where they looked at the electroencephalogram, is that right? The EEG of the brainwaves of people who had done at least 10,000 hours of metta bhavana practice. So they looked at the brainwaves of people who'd done 10,000 hours of metta bhavana practice, apparently both people who were monastic and people who were lay practitioners, and they compared that with people who didn't meditate. And what they found was that the long-term meditators had a different brainwave pattern from normal when they were meditating, but that elements of that different pattern persisted when they weren't meditating. There were still differences from their brainwave pattern to non-meditators, even when they weren't meditating. Permanently different from people who didn't do the practice. We can assume they were experiencing metta all the time. There was metta there all the time. Okay, that sounds great, doesn't it? But if we do the metta bhavana once a day, I reckon it would take us over 40 years to clock up 10,000 hours. So if you want to get that effect and not wait that long, you've really got to go on retreat and do lots of meditation. Okay. In actual fact, just because the experiment used people who've got 10,000 hours under their belt, doesn't necessarily mean you couldn't get some of those benefits with in a lesser time. There's perhaps the same benefits in a lesser time. There's nothing magic about 10,000 hours. They just chose it so they were good meditators, they were experienced meditators. But the point remains, to get those benefits, to take it off the cushion, we need to do the meditation. We need to get in the hours on the cushion, day after day. We need to get the practice. As I've said, once we've done a bit of metta bhavana and can remember what metta feels like, then it becomes a lot easier. I mean, I use the word feeling advisedly. Metta isn't just a feeling. Metta isn't just a feeling. Metta is a state of being, which includes a way of thinking and a way a volitional element and a feeling element. But for me, the way I can contact it is because I feel it in my body. I feel metta in my body. And the way I connect with metta when I'm going about my usual business is to remember that feeling, to recall that feeling. To recall the feeling is to re-experience it. I mean, when we remember something, we re-experience it. So to recall the feeling is to re-experience it for me. And that gives me a starting point. Now, I think one problem we're talking about the metta bhavana is lots of people do it very differently from each other. But I'd say that's how I reconnect with metta. I reconnect with it as a feeling in the body. And it's a feeling that's definitely felt somewhere around here, actually. Somewhere around the centre of the chest, somewhere around the heart centre. I don't think it's any coincidence that it seems to me that just about all cultures seem to associate warm emotions, the emotions of love and metta, with the heart. I don't think that's a coincidence, actually. I think that a lot of people's experience that's where we feel that sort of emotion, the centre of the chest, somewhere around here. And so you might want to experiment in your meditation with noticing how metta feels in the body. You might want to experiment with whether focusing on this area, do you feel sensations of pleasure and warmth in this area? And if we can, as it were, locate metta in the body, well, it makes it a lot easier if we can remember that feeling to take it off the cushion. But also it means that we've got a sort of a foundation, and we've got we've got some stability in our metta bhavana, some mindfulness in our metta bhavana, because we can be grounded in the body at the same time as doing the metta bhavana. One thing that I think problem that I think people find in the metta bhavana is that thinking about people all the time, you just go off on one. You're sort of in a mental world, and so it's quite easy to get distracted. But if we can have something that grounds us in the body at the same time, then it becomes a lot easier to do the metta bhavana and not get distracted, I think. And the metta bhavana and the mindfulness of breathing start to sort of become more similar. So far the sutta has told us the way to enlightenment is to work to become an integrated, ethical person, and then to cultivate positive emotion by doing the metta bhavana. And to take our metta off the cushion and stay as mindful of it as we can in as much of our everyday life as we possibly can. That's where we've got to, basically, and we're nearly at the end. Oh, okay. I said at the beginning of this talk that in the Theravadan tradition of Southeast Asia, this text is seen as having a sort of magical power. It's chanting this text is supposed to protect you from harm and evil influences. It's said that the Burmese monks, I don't know if you remember, there was quite a lot of trouble in Burma some time ago, and lots of Burmese monks were demonstrating against the government, and it said that they chanted together the Karaniya Metta Sutta to protect themselves and to bring positive outcomes, good results. So that just reflects the fact that this sutta is supposed to have this sort of magical power, and I think we're going to get some experience of hearing it chanted in Pali later. But in fact, there's a story that the Buddha taught this practice initially, taught the metta bhavana as a way for meditators to protect themselves from harmful influences. I don't believe this story for a moment. Okay, I don't believe this story for a moment because it's quite clear to me from the Karadiya Metta Sutta that the Buddha taught the metta bhavana as a way to move towards enlightenment and not just as a way to protect yourself from harmful influences. But it's worth telling the story anyway because it does bring out that there's quite a lot of benefits from the metta bhavana short of full enlightenment. So, according to this story, a group of 500 of the Buddha's disciples, one rainy season, went to the Buddha and they wanted to go off and meditate. There was a tradition that you do a rainy season retreat. You can't do much in the rainy season in India, so you go and meditate for 3 months. And they wanted to do a rainy season retreat and they were sort of looking for somewhere to go, and the Buddha said, try that place. So they went to this particular place, all 500 of them, and they found it was an amazing place, just a beautiful hill in the foothill of the Himalayas, covered in cool, dense green forest of huge, majestic trees with a sandy floor. It was dry and warm, and a beautiful, clear spring of pure water. Just the place, just the place. Now, and not only that, there were some villages nearby, and even a market town where they could go and beg for food, so they weren't going to starve. So, brilliant, thank you, Buddha. Renunciants, they plunged into this forest. They sat down at the foot of these majestic trees which are protecting them from the rain, and they set themselves to do the rainy season retreat. And at first this seemed to go quite well, but there was a problem. There was a problem. And the problem was that apparently these majestic trees, the meditators were inhabited by tree deities who had built their mansions there, invisible mansions. And at first the tree deities put up with the meditators, but they thought they were going to go away. And then when the meditators didn't show any signs of going away, they started to get a bit resentful of being invaded by 500 meditators sitting in their mansions. So they decided to frighten the meditators away. They started giving them terrible visions. They started making dreadful noises, and they created a sickening stench. So the monks couldn't concentrate anymore, and their minds were oppressed with all sorts of negative mental states and unhelpful thoughts and feelings. So they thought, well, what's going on? So they went back to the Buddha. They went back to the Buddha and they said, well, very nice place, Buddha, but, we just really didn't get on with meditating there. Could you tell us somewhere else, basically? And the Buddha apparently taught them the Karaniya Metta Sutta. And he said, chant this sutta and practice what it says and go back and meditate under those same trees and you will be fine. So the disciples went back, reciting the sutta, chanting the sutta, meditating as advised, and apparently the hearts of the tree deities were so filled with warm feelings for these metaful people that they transformed themselves into human beings and looked after the meditators as their servants for the rest of the rainy season, making sure they had perfect peace and were never disturbed. And at the end of the rainy season, all 500 of them became enlightened. Okay, that's a mythic story. That's a mythic story. But I reckon it's getting at something quite true, actually. I don't know whether chanting the sutta would protect us from harmful influences and evil. I mean, I have an open mind about that. But I am absolutely sure that doing the metta bhavana and cultivating metta does protect us from harmful influences. For one thing, it protects us from harmful influences in our own mind. When we're doing a lot of meditation, as those meditators in the story were, it's very easy for our minds to take us down sort of wrong paths, get a bit self-obsessed, we get a bit maybe proud of our achievements, whatever, and then we hit a brick wall. I speak from experience here because this has happened to me several times. I mean, order members sort of take on board that they need to do solitary retreats periodically. A number of times on solitary retreats, I've gone off and to do a lot of meditation, and my preference is to do a lot of the mindfulness of breathing and a lot of sadhana and a lot of insight practice. practice. That's my preference. Metta Bhavana. I want to get into lovely states. I want to get into lovely states. So I do get into lovely states. It's lovely. And then I get a bit like, oh, this is lovely. I like this. I get a bit attached to it. And I get a bit self-obsessed, a bit alienated from any sense of solidarity with other people. If I go out for a walk, I want to avoid people. And if anyone makes a noise in my vicinity, I get annoyed with them. I once saw some people fishing in that lake over there. I really cheesed off with them. How can they dare fish in that lake? And then it all starts to go very pear-shaped. When I'm not getting into lovely states, in fact, I'm getting into not lovely states at all, just like the meditators in the story. And for me, the solution has always been the same. Do the metta bhavana. Do the metta bhavana. Fill the heart with metta. Make the practice about others rather than myself, and then everything changes. I can see clearly. It all falls away. It all changes. The metta bhavana protects us from evil influences in our own mind, which are particularly liable to come up, I think, if we're doing a lot of meditation. So the story of the monks is a true story, I think, but put in mythic terms. If you want to do a lot of meditation, you need to do the metta bhavana to protect yourself from harmful influences within your own mind, your innate egocentricity, etc. But even if we aren't doing a lot of meditation, the metta bhavana still has a positive protective effect. It has this positive protective effect. It protects us from focusing on ourselves. And focusing on ourselves leads to all sorts of negative mental states like depression, anxiety, resentment, hypochondria, all sorts of things come from that focus on me all the time. If we focus on more on others than ourselves, it also prevents us from getting involved in all sorts of unskillfulness. We're protected from unskillfulness. And unskillfulness is harmful. Unskillfulness harms us. So we're protected from the harm we might do ourselves and others because of our unskillfulness. The metta bhavana keeps us on track with ethics. Metta protects our relationships. If our relationships will be healthy if we act from metta, and our well-being depends crucially on the quality of our relationships. The more we act from metta, the more we treat others like a dear friend, the happier we get. For a start, people are nicer to us, which is very nice. Our relationships blossom. We get much closer to people. People help us rather than opposing us. We bring out the best in others. And then we get to be around people who are at their best. If we bring out the worst in others, we get to be around people who are at their worst, which is not very pleasant. So we bring out the best in people, and then we live in a world where people are at their best. We create a positive aura around ourselves, a positive environment around ourselves. So metta creates harmony. It creates harmony with other people, and it creates harmony, I think, with the world. The world cooperates with us when we have a mind full of metta, like the tree spirits in the story. I think that's what it's getting at. So the metta bhavana has all these positive effects, and of course, being Buddhism, there's lists of these positive effects. There's lists of them. The metta bhavana is generally recommended as a good way to calm a troubled mind, but then there are lists of the particular benefits. So one list says, if we have metta, if we cultivate metta, we will sleep easily, have pleasant dreams, and awake happy and refreshed. We'll be protected from insomnia and nightmares. People will love us. Animals will love us. It says we'll attract devas. Devas are these sort of higher beings, but it's like we attract an atmosphere. We attract the sort of atmosphere that we create the sort of atmosphere around us that positivity brings, which brings good luck. We will have a bright complexion and be attractive. Be attractive to others. Our mind will be serene and we will find it easy to concentrate. We will die unconfused. And after death, we will go to a very positive rebirth. So, if we believe the blur, then metta is better than any happiness pill. It's a combination of the very best happiness pill with the best cosmetic ever invented. Better than plastic surgery, you know. I mean, who wouldn't want it? I mean, if there was a product advertised on the telly that offered all those benefits and was free, we'd certainly go out and get it. And that's the traditional list. That's the traditional list. There's even some modern evidence, actually. There's even some modern evidence about the benefits of metta. So for a long time, there's been a lot of interest in mindfulness and mental health in the West. Mental health and well-being. But more recently, this interest has spilled over into metta as well. I remember a group of people who did alcoholism counselling coming to Sheffield Buddhist Centre, and I did a sort of day for them where we looked at metta bhavana, and we looked at the wheel of life actually as well, and mindfulness. And they said, "Oh, mindfulness we come across, but hey, this metta, that's what's really missing. That's what's really missing when we talk about people getting out of addiction." And that's, I think, starting to occur to people in the sort of world of counselling and therapy. So there have been some studies showing. There's been, again, Wikipedia, the source of all knowledge. Loving kindness meditation can reduce pain, depression and anger in people with chronic back pain. Compassion meditation has been shown to improve people's resistance to stress and even to reduce inflammation. And the effect was directly related to the amount of time the people spent meditating. So who wouldn't do the metta bhavana? It brings a whole host of benefits, and according to the sutta, to live in metta, to bring it into our everyday life, is like living in heaven right here and now. It's real happiness if we know what is truly good for us. And I think it's like heaven near and now, because I think all the positive emotions are actually related. The more we have of one, the more we have of others. If we have more metta, we have more joy. If we have more metta, we're more open to the beauty of the world. We see things more. We see the beauty of the world. There are different ways in, but all of those positive emotions, I think they form a sort of a web, and the more we cultivate one, the more we're going to experience them all. And what is happiness if it isn't positive emotion? That's what I'd like to know. So, hey, do it. But even after telling us that if we live in metta, it's like living in heaven, the sutta goes even further. It says, when you find it, what does it say? It says, I lost it.
I think it's just under your top page. No, on the
Nope, there it is. It says, about living in heaven right here and now. In this way you will leave all wrong views far behind. You will experience spiritual insight that is beyond words and concepts. And going completely beyond craving, you'll be liberated from the wheel of samsara forever. It's saying metta leads to insight, to liberation. That's not the way we usually think about it, I think. We probably think you need integration, yes. We need integration at the beginning of the path. We need positive emotion, and that's what the metta bhavana is about. And then when we've got that foundation, we move on to the real practices. We move on to the insight practices. We get into spiritual death and spiritual rebirth. But the metta bhavana isn't going to give us that. That's the way I think an awful lot of Buddhists in the West think. We need other special meditations to move on to spiritual death and spiritual rebirth, to leave the old self behind and move into a new, more universal self. But the sutta is telling us this isn't so. It's telling us metta leads to insight. Okay, how might that work? How might that work? I think if we look at the words of the sutta, they give us a bit of a clue as to why metta leads to insight. So the sutta tells us, develop an unlimited heart of friendliness. Well, I'm pretty sure the word that's being translated as heart here is chitta. And chitta in Pali and Sanskrit doesn't just mean heart. it means mind as well. In Buddhism, the distinction isn't there between heart and mind. I think it's rather a phony distinction, actually. Our thoughts and our feelings are just like that. They're like that. But so chitta is heart-mind. So we could develop an unlimited heart of friendliness. We could just as well say, develop an unlimited mind. Develop an unlimited mind. What limits our mind is our cramped identification with this small bit of the universe. This one small person who we think we are. And the metta bhavana liberates our mind from this cramped prison of separate selfhood, so that we're no longer thinking just with our little mind. We're no longer limited to our self-identification. It's not just my little mind, it's big mind, it's the universe's mind, it's a more universal mind, it's a more enlightened mind. So there's another sutta, there's lots of sutras about metta, there's a sutta that says, a mind of universal love is a mind that has grown great, lofty and boundless. A mind of universal love is a mind that has grown great, lofty and boundless. Boundless, infinite. It's an infinite mind. It's not within the usual boundaries that we limit ourselves in. It's infinite mind. It's liberated mind. It's enlightened mind. A mind of universal love is an enlightened mind. So, Sangharakshita has said somewhere that metta is the emotional counterpart of wisdom. That metta is the emotional counterpart of wisdom. Metta is the emotional aspect. Wisdom is, if you like, the cognitive aspect. A bit of a posh word. Cognitive means what we see with our mind, what we know. So, metta is the emotional aspect of feeling, and wisdom is the cognitive aspect, the knowing aspect. But those two aspects are not really so separate, actually. So in a sense, metta is wisdom. The thoughts that metta gives rise to are wise thoughts. They're thoughts coming from a bigger, more universal perspective than when we just focused on our own well-being. The way of seeing things that metta gives rise to is a truer way of seeing things with a higher and wider viewpoint than our usual one. So the thoughts arising from metta are wise thoughts, and also the other way around. When we see clearly, we will experience metta. The two are like that. They're intimately related. We get one, we will get more of the other. Metta is wisdom. That's in a way what the sutta is saying. So if we develop metta, we will get wisdom. That's the perspective. The perspective of universal love is the perspective from which we get wisdom. And that idea isn't actually even confined to Buddhism. So there's a chap called Elred of Revo, who I think we should adopt as a sort of pre-Buddhist role model, pre-Buddhist Yorkshirean role model, actually. A pre-Buddhist exemplar of something, who lived at Revo Abbey. So he said, he wrote a book called Spiritual Friendship. And in his book called Spiritual Friendship, he said, if you carefully consider, friendship is close to wisdom. No, friendship is so close to wisdom, so full of wisdom, that we might almost say that friendship is nothing else but wisdom. And of course, metta actually means friendliness. Metta is friendliness. As long as we could translate it as friendliness, as long as we make sure we don't mean friendliness as something sort of lukewarm or something exclusive, we could translate metta as friendliness. So we could paraphrase Elred by saying, metta is so close to wisdom, so full of wisdom, that we could almost say that metta is nothing else but wisdom. And that's what the sutta is telling us. The metta bhavana brings enormous benefits before enlightenment, but it actually can lead us all the way to enlightenment because metta is wisdom. So do the metta bhavana.